Welcome back to We Care a Lot. I'm half the podcast Mel.
I'm the other half Sam.
Hey.
I feel like today's we're giving kind of like therapy or like what's that? The cozy bear. What was that orange bear called? Orange bear. He wasn't a cartoon. He was just like a really big ass bear with the moon.
Oh my god.
What was that called? Something just like cozy big bear in the house with the moon.
You know what we're talking about.
It's giving that right now, or at least that's where my energy is at, like his slow, low talk. And it's because we're both sick, but we're on the up and up. So if we sound funny or just are a little low, it's okay, because this topic honestly calls for it.
This topic is hard. Anyway, I feel like a lot of people experienced getting sick over Halloween weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not COVID, I'll tell you that.
It's negative on the COVID front. Thank God.
We're back to just getting regular sick, and that feels weird.
Literally, what a life. But that's not the topic today. But alas, we're sick. And today we're talking about grief. And specifically, this episode, we want to talk about grief in terms of...
like losing a loved one.
Yes.
In terms of death.
Right. Not just like ending a relationship or other ways you can grieve the loss of something or someone. So if you're ready for that topic, stay tuned.
We also don't know how this is going to go because... I don't know. I think it's just like a very complex and very difficult thing to talk about in general. Not because like we're hiding our feelings or anything, but it's more of just like it looks so different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like as we get closer to the holidays, by the time you're watching this, it's going to be like probably almost Thanksgiving. And with that, like family meetings and all that kind of stuff, you know, you get your stress triggers, and like certain things will come up. So I don't know, I think if this is like something that you're feeling, I just want to say I'm really sorry. You know, you're not alone, and it's definitely a very difficult thing to succumb to and, you know, learn to live with, because that's something that everyone says is like you don't get over it. You have to like learn how to live with it and befriend it. But I'm sorry that that's something you're going through. It's not easy. It's very tough. And I don't know if we'll have any resources. I'm now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe we can look some up, and if they're there, they're there. But if not, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't even think of a soft intro of the resource. You know, we're not doctors, as we always like to say.
Yeah,
so
this disclaimer,
is
we're just
just
talking
and hopefully it resonates. Well, I mean, hopefully it doesn't resonate, but I think realistically as a human it's gonna resonate.
It's the human experience, man.
Yeah. Which I guess like we could start there. Like, grief is sort of a feeling, at least in terms of death, like we're talking about, isn't always a feeling you know in your childhood. Not always. Sometimes for sure it is.
Some people experience it really early on.
Yeah. And that's a completely different experience from what I can share today. But for me, I was thinking about it last night, actually, because obviously I'm getting ready to film this. And I was thinking my grandmother was the first person I ever lost and like grieved, but it was actually my dad's like, call him his mentor, but like his lifelong friend. And I was in 6th grade when he passed away. I do remember like crying and like being really sad, but I was like 6th grade and also just like so different from losing my grandma that like I immediately was like, that's my first like loss.
This is a terrible episode to have a cough on because I'm gonna have to like interrupt you, but
no, it's okay. Yeah, so I feel like losing my grandma, I immediately thought that was like first version of like intense loss.
Right.
But then I remembered.
My God, dude. Fuck everything right now. Okay, and then you remembered.
Yeah, so I guess, but also there's just like a difference in each person that maybe you lose, and like your closeness to them, and also your age at which you lose them. So yeah, I just never even thought of that. But what was your first experience like grieving somebody?
Let me think. Actually, my first experience to grieve, like as a conscious person.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
Babies.
Yeah, because my grandmother died like in the first year of my life. But anyway, I don't remember that.
Right.
But my first experience of grief, which I feel like really set the tone. Mm-hmm. My mother's, my uncle, he committed suicide. And it's one of those, like, I think also, like, to say, like, grieving is so different also from situation, not also just, like, person, but, like, how they passed. And that was such an interesting, like, introduction to
death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God. I'm going through
it. Yeah, I think a lot about, like, since I'm such a true crime fanatic, like, the people who lose someone and they don't even have closure onto like why, absolutely. What happened, where they are even, or if they're dead, like that kind of grief,
it's different.
That is very different. But not to say that anyone has it easier or like better or anything. It's just different. And yeah, I don't know. I think the first time you feel grief, it's like, whoa. Like, this is just going to pass, like a breakup, right? Like, when like you break up with someone.
You think, like, oh, I'm just a little sad.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes grief makes you act in mysterious ways. Some people get angry. Some people get depressed. Some people do a lot of different things.
They say, like, the 5 stages or whatever of grief. I honestly feel like, to an extent, yes, that's, like, true. And I'm not going to, like... I'm not gonna challenge a fucking scientist,
right?
But I do think that like it's a little more complex than that. Like I feel like that is just for us to have like a tangible,
it feels
like a grip on what grieving or death really means to us.
Especially if you can call a stage out and be like, I'm only 2 away from the end.
I'm in the anger stage. I'm so good now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, there's like. When it hits you, you're just like, you don't even understand really what's going on. As much as you want to like look into it and whatever the fuck you're listening to this, maybe you're grieving and you're trying to find some comfort. I think there's also like that piece of like grieving where when it first happens to you, I think you feel like no one understands. Like no one, and that's honestly fucking true. Like no one will understand exactly how you're grieving. And some people could get really resentful and kind of be like, you know, don't talk to me about what I'm going through because you don't know. And to an extent that's true, but I think at the end of the day, you know, we're all gonna experience this form of life where we lose people we care about, and I don't know, I'm just saying it's like a natural reaction to be like, what, like you don't know anything about what I'm, you know, and you don't know either, you know.
And I feel like it's not even that there's a right or wrong way. It's just more so about, even though you might be feeling really strong emotions one way or another, there's other people in your life probably who also are feeling whatever strong emotion which way or another, if it's the same as you or not. And from experience, I have to say, just remembering that, like, it's okay that they're grieving differently, and just, like, reminding yourself, like, we still love each other. We love that person. Like, we both love that person.
Oh, that's so relevant.
You know? And it's, like, it's okay. Like, we don't have to grieve the same way. We don't have to even understand each other in this moment or be there for each other through grief.
Yeah.
It's just knowing that, like, we're gonna come back together, or like there doesn't need to even be like distance per se. I feel like families specifically, that's like really strong, because everything gets brought up from the back end of life, and all of the things that either that person did or that you did to that person while they were alive, and it's just like, is that really what we want to be thinking about? Like,
is that where the energy's going?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just extremely relevant. I just lost my uncle this past weekend, or this, I guess not this weekend, but the
last week.
Actually on Halloween. He was battling cancer for a minute. He kind of found out just, a little too late, and the stages were a little hard to come back from. But yet still, like, for the last couple of months, it's kind of been like, he's running out of time. And I gotta say that grieving is so different from
sudden loss.
Especially, like, watching my mom go through the different stages of, like, what each person that she's lost, because it was her brother as well, another brother. Watching the difference of, like, what that felt like for her was really interesting, because the sudden loss, I almost feel like, honestly, all of the deaths that I've been through were sudden loss, except this last one. And it's, like, different to anticipate something, and also, like, not necessarily, like, wish for their, like, end, but, like, you don't want someone to struggle, and be in pain.
Seeing them be physically, like,
going through it.
Sick.
And also, like, not being physically close to him, or, like, I haven't been to, he was in Mexico, and I haven't been in, like, 10 years. And so there's also, like, that relevance of, like, I didn't see him struggle through it. So, like, it's, also for my mom, like, she didn't see him all the time, and so she didn't really get to see him, like, through every stage of the pain. So for her, it was still, like, really hard. And obviously, like, there's, like, this level of wishing things could have gone different or whatever. And then you, like, look at his wife, who,
like for him, or for, like, their relationship,
like, for him, like, his ending, like, she just constantly thinks about, why didn't they take him to the doctor sooner? And like, he was a stubborn man, so, like, obviously he didn't want to go, but like, you couldn't really change that. But, like, seeing her grieve, and then watching, like, or hearing about his wife and how she's grieving, and, like, I think she feels really at peace with, like, how it went down at the very end, because she was right next to him struggling and watching the struggle, like, the grieving is so different, because for one, like, you're feeling at peace, but also obviously you're extremely sad, and there's, like, the loss of a human being from one day to the next, but also you don't want to see somebody struggle. It's just I don't know, again, like, situation to situation, it's all so different.
Yeah, it's really complex based on the situation, for sure. And, like, the sudden loss, it's like neither is better or worse. They're just so different. Like, the prolonged experience for me is what it has always been. Like, someone's sick, and then they're in the hospital, they're out of the hospital, they're in the hospital, whatever.
Yeah. And
it is really different, like, seeing someone going through, like, the fight, I guess, of
like, staying alive,
of wanting to be alive. And it also sucks when that person wanted to be alive, or, like, wanted more, was just, like, confused.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah. And also, like, in my case, my grandma couldn't speak at the end for, like, the past few months of her life. And so, like, that was really hard, because it's like, she loved talking, for one. And then she couldn't even write, so, like, there was no way to communicate with her other than, like, physical touch and, like, just, like, energy, I guess. So, like, that was also really weird. But, like, aside from the process, I guess, of someone dying, like, it's the aftermath. The literal aftermath of, because I feel like the grieving process does start before you actually lose the person, if you get the chance to. If you are in that scenario.
For some, I will say, like, when Logan's grandmother passed, the grieving actually didn't start till, at least for her, and even for myself, honestly, like, I feel like the grieving didn't really start until when we had a ceremony for her, which was, like, 2 or 3 months later. After the passing, even though we did go through similar experience of, like, her being in and out of the hospital, and / like, also at the very end, just, like, having that very, like, vivid image of knowing that someone's passing, like, you could see it leaving.
I think it gets real when it's, like, it's now affecting your everyday life. So, like, if you didn't see that person every day, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm obviously sad that person is gone, but if I didn't call them on the phone every day, there's not something in my day-to-day life that's, like, changing. So there's, like,
that piece.
Yeah, like, I think that's when it, like, maybe hits, like, the holidays especially, like you get together and normally that person would be there, or whatever it is that like they're at normally, or you're in interactions with them. I think that's when it like actually hits and you're like, oh, like all the things you imagined they'd be at, or the things they'd be part of, the people they'd meet, like your friggin' children and your husband, wife, like whatever.
Yeah. Well, like with that like sentiment, it's like when you lose somebody, like the grieving process, it starts, but like we said, I don't think it ever ends.
Yeah.
And every time you have a moment, whether it's a good moment or a bad moment, that person seems to feel like they continue to die again when you have an important piece of your life that you wish they were there for. That person, that the grieving that you have for that person kind of like doesn't restart.
No. Yeah.
But it like a new like layer of something is added, and that's why like grieving never ends, because you're not going to just forget this person, you know. It's just something that you're going to carry with and with your like life, and figuring out and managing how, you know, in those times, like, and I'm not perfect, I don't even know what to do, so it's just
I mean, as the saying goes, I don't know if some people don't believe this, but grief is lifelong, and like you're saying, it just gets re-triggered by things, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Like it is, and you just have to sit with yourself and be like, yeah, that is very real emotion that I'm feeling right now, and that's okay. Like you can't bring that person back. Yeah.
I mean, or you're gonna be feeling on the opposite end of like nothing is real and you're dissociating.
Not dissociating.
That's a very real like part of grieving as well. Like everyone's experience is so different, where like some people are like so into being inside the feeling of sadness, but others, life doesn't feel real. The experience doesn't feel real anymore. You almost feel like you're playing a video game and you're just kind of sitting and watching things happen. And that's what dissociation is. And I mean with my regular depression, I feel it all the time. And I think when I grieve like that, I do get triggered in that sense as well.
Do you feel like in that sense, is that something you should battle? Like if you find yourself dissociating?
No, I think it's just like recognizing that it's a coping mechanism. I think that's the most important thing of like when you're grieving, is being gentle with yourself and not really like forcing yourself to feel better or feel the feeling that you think you're supposed to be feeling. You know, it's just like, this is just the way that your brain is managing with this life experience that is inevitable, unfortunately, you know?
Yeah. And I guess like there's also like the fine balance of I guess like acknowledging how you feel but not letting it like hinder your life. And like, because we could totally be sad, but like there's also that sentiment of like, oh well, they wouldn't want you to do that, like when a husband passes or something and it's like, hey, they would have wanted you to remarry or whatever, you know, like there's always that sentiment of like, just like keep living your life though at the end of the day, like of course still hold that person and there's nothing that's going to take that away, but don't let it stop you from living your life because their life ended, I guess, which is always really hard to fucking like in the moment when you're feeling extreme emotions. You're not going to be like, you know what, like actually it's okay, because they would have told me so or whatever. And
of course, like I think, and like if you're like really in the thick of it right now, this isn't gonna feel right when I'm saying it, but you will return to yourself. Like that's also a part of grieving, is like going back and forth from feeling like the end of the world to, oh, my life is exactly the same except for this one thing, you know, and then you probably go back to like feeling like shit.
Like, wait a minute, no it's not.
So like you're just gonna go back and forth, and that's grieving itself. But like I don't know if you're gonna feel a sense of relief by me saying this, but you will return to yourself at some capacity. I think one of the things that I like learned from the first like death that I experienced was like watching that life just continues to go by no matter what. Like I think also, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old when that happened. So like I was still like young, like a very young kid, but I was like old enough to have like conscious thoughts and stuff. So like experiencing the death and being like, oh my God, like everyone around me feels like their entire lives just like ended, and mine too. But then like
you guys got up the next
I
morning.
had to go to school. People had to go to work. You know, the holidays passed. You just start to like think like, oh, like literally life doesn't wait for anybody. Like you can't just like sit back and think that like because this thing ended for one person, like that your life won't also like it's gonna continue. And that is just like, and that's where people say like time heals all, because it really is just like time passes and you start to realize that time is passing.
Yeah, I think it's also like more, as time passes, it's more like moments in time that feel heavy versus like when it first happens and you lose that person, it's heavy like for days, which is like similar to what you think of in a breakup. Like it's super hard at first, blah, 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 whatever. Even like breakups, like you do think about that person like later on and like whatever, but it's very different. But like with grief, you just have like surges of those moments that were like the beginning. Like it feels all consuming. And it's probably like anniversaries of their death, birthdays, or special holidays with that person or whatever.
Like it can be like seasons. Like it could be anywhere from one day to like years of feeling like things are not gonna go back to normal.
I mean, years?
Yeah, some people grieve for years.
I mean, grief for years. Well, that's
well, I mean, like in the thick of it.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, that's what we're saying. Grief is forever, but I cannot imagine.
It's hard.
Grief for years, like physically living through that. That would be really hard.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what book this is from, but we got it from TikTok, an account, Thought Catalog, and it's just 2 paragraphs about grief. If there's anything I wish we could talk about more, it's the in-between stages of letting someone go, because nobody lets go in an instant. You let go once, and then you let go again, and then again, and again, and again. You let someone go at the grocery store with their favorite type of soup is on sale, and you don't buy it. You let them go again when you're cleaning your bathroom and you have to throw out the bottle of body wash that smells like them. You let go the night at the bar when you go home with somebody else, or you let them go every year on the anniversary of the day you lost them. Sometimes you're going to have to let one person go 1,000 different times, 1,000 different ways, and there's nothing pathetic or abnormal about that. You're human, and it isn't always as simple as making one decision and never looking back. Moving on isn't always about speeding enthusiastically forward so much as it's about having one foot on the gas and the other on the brakes, releasing and accelerating in turn. You're not a failure for getting to someplace amazing and still feeling like a part of yourself is missing once you get there. You're not pathetic for mourning while you grow. The bad things don't disappear in the blink of an eye, and the good things don't spring up into existence without raining at least a tiny bit of collateral damage. It takes time for everything to even out, and it should. So I feel like that honestly just summarized everything we said.
There's a piece in there. Oh, the piece where it was talking about like having one foot on the gas and one on the brakes. I feel like that's like the best way to put it, because with like what we just were saying, like, and with what that said, it could be literally anything that triggers the sense of loss. And some things are unexpected, you know? And it could be like the soup that you didn't think you were going to see or whatever. But other things like anniversaries or months or specific times of the year, it's good to know that like you might be feeling something, you know, you don't force it, but like anticipate maybe a little bit, like that you might have a hard time with something, and giving yourself the time and space to sit with those feelings and not, or like healthily cope in a way that's like gonna help you move through some of those uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Yeah, I think it's like on one hand for me like really hard to say like this, like basically expecting something to suck. Like it's hard to put that in the universe, you know, which isn't what we're saying.
Yeah,
but it is like hard to accept that like there's just going to be a period of time that feels more difficult. And on the other hand, it's helpful to just be like you're saying, like sit with those feelings, do whatever it is that's your coping that's healthy, because otherwise the time comes and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna binge drink, or I'm gonna go to my unhealthy coping, and I'm not even gonna like consciously know why, I guess. Like, yeah. I'm just gonna suppress things that
you're
I don't
gonna go on autopilot.
Yeah,
is what's gonna happen,
and we don't want that. We would much rather just, it's okay to be sad. It's literally okay to be sad, even when you're supposed to be happy. And it's also okay to be happy if you think you're supposed to be sad. Like, nothing is Absolutely. Right or wrong. Like, if it's the anniversary of their death and you're having the best day, that's okay. Like, you don't have to be like, oh my God, like, I feel so guilty. Like, I'm not even thinking about them as much as I should. Or...
I think that's also such a big misconception about, like, grieving. Like, I think people think that when anniversaries come up, birthdays of the people that they loved, they feel like they need to have a sense of sadness and, like, melancholy and, like, just sit with, like, silence and silence.
Yeah.
More than anything, these people that you loved you and would want you to be happy. If you're having those feelings of positivity, and what better way to celebrate them than to celebrate your life, you know, if that's where you're at. But if you're feeling sad, that's also okay. Like, it's all one in the fucking same, you know. That thing's gonna ebb and flow
in the same day. It could all
for sure
be its own thing,
for sure.
Grieve, man.
Grieving is hard. And I think, like, I just always have that stupid fucking saying in the back of my head that it comes in threes, you know, death comes in threes. Anyway, but I've been seeing a few,
I'm
like,
just thinking on that. Like, I was in silence because I was just like, you're wrong. Like, it's not, stop worrying.
I know.
Like,
I'm
but
just,
obviously me saying stop worrying isn't going to do shit.
And I know I'm having anxiety about it.
Yeah.
Like, every time Logan leaves, I'm on the verge of, like, tears. I'm scared that, like, she's going to be gone or something. I don't know. I think about every person in my life like that. It's just so scary. Anyway, that's probably me grieving.
Potentially.
But what I was gonna say is something funny. Like, because I'm on that fucking side of TikTok, I actually saw, like, this really, really, I saw 2 videos. One of them was really sweet, where it was, like, this group of, like, I think they're, like, 18 or 19-year-old girls who just graduated high school, and, like, I think this was, like, in August was, like, the first, like, month in college. Like, it was their first year. And they were sitting, I don't know if they were sitting at the cemetery or what, but it looked like a park. And they were, like, reading, I guess they compiled the list of things that would have made her really laugh or be just extremely surprised since she passed.
Not me wanting to cry.
It was so sweet. And they were just reading it. And, like, at first they started the video with, like, we're reading these things that we thought, you know, Sophie, I think was her name, would have really, like, thought was funny, or, you know, we're just here to surprise her, and, like, things that happen that you wouldn't believe. And then they just, like, started listing these things. They were laughing so hard, and, like, by the end of the video, like, they're, like, legitimately, it feels like you're Sophie and they're talking to you. Like, it just became so surreal.
Gosh.
And it was just so beautiful to see, like, people grieve and, like, heal in that way, where, like, they were, like,
healing in community is everything.
Dude,
it's everything.
But it was just, like, such a sweet video. And, like, you can tell that, like, their friendship was so, you know, sweet and, like, magical. And they were just, like, laughing. And, like, if she was, like, you could feel, like, if she was there, she would be laughing at these, like, situations.
I literally can't even imagine losing a best friend.
Oof.
Like that.
So, that was that one video. And then I guess, like, this other video was, like, this girl who, I think she had just lost, like, her boyfriend or her partner. And she did a get ready with me to go to his funeral.
Wow.
And it's not, like, a funny joke, I don't think.
I don't think.
Because everyone in the comments, like, seemed to know, like, who the guy was and stuff, whatever.
Oh, wait. What do you mean? Like, he's, like, a figure? Like, a public figure?
I think so.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know this girl. Like, it's like a niche of TikTok. I don't know.
Got it.
But... because she's, like, usually, like, a comedian on her page. And, like, she was just, like...
context here.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was, like, really, she was, like, she looked very normal, you know, and, like, she was just putting on her fucking, like, primer and her, like, glowy, like
it's like the reality of grief. Like,
right,
you
like,
have to get ready.
You're
still
sitting there literally getting ready for the fucking funeral. And She was just like, this just feels insane. Like, the fact that I'm sitting here, she's like, I don't even know why I'm recording this, because, like, what the fuck? You probably are thinking, like, why am I watching this? But, like, I just felt like I needed to. And, like,
yeah,
she was just, like, being really honest about how she's just, like, she's really angry that he's gone.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
Obviously, she's hurting.
She's hurting. But I think the way that she was coping was just so relatable and so, like, real. And that's the part where I'm like, it's okay for it not to feel like anything's fucking real, too. You know? Like, I think she was in that state of, like, being angry.
Just disbelief. What is it? What's the first stage? Denial?
Denial? Kind of? Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's even in denial. I think she's in, like, or maybe she is. I think she's, like, hopping between stages of, like, in denial, but also, like, angry. And, like, it was just very real to see her jumping from both. And at the end, just kind of being like, well, this is the look. Like, here I'm going now. And it's just,
I mean, and there's something to be said, too, about the fact that, like, we have an online community. I don't know. I hate being the person in the generation who's, like, sticking up for the online fucking world, but, like, it's so nice to know that there's other people suffering in normal ways. Yeah. It's nice to know that, like, I'm not the only one who got cheated on in the world, or I'm not the only one going through a breakup, or I'm not the only one, like, just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be fucking doing for the rest of my life. You know, like, all these things feel so isolating. And even if you're, like, fuck the internet, right? Aside from the internet, like, let's say back to when I lost my grandma, or when you lost your uncle when you were little. Like, imagine how isolating it would have been had all the family members, all your friends were just kind of like, don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know? Like, of course we need each other to fucking talk about it and move through it and, like, have these moments together. And it's also hard when your family or friends are on different pages in that loss, because it's like, I want to be sad and they want to be angry, or I want to talk about all the good times with them. They just want to talk about all the bad times with them. Like, it's really difficult.
It's so hard.
Yeah. And I freaking empathize with you if you're going through that, because you just honestly have to find your own coping in that way. Like, if your family or friends aren't able to do it, I guess the internet, man, like, or support groups, books, podcasts, like,
even just, like, music. Like,
oh my god, music's amazing.
Music's amazing.
I love music. But actually,
yeah, no, like, grieving is, like, extremely, like, deeply personal, like, to person, you know?
And it hurts when someone else doesn't
see it that way.
You're like, but we're sad, aren't we? And they're like, no, we're pissed. And you're like,
right.
Like, I don't like that energy you're putting towards me and my grief. So it's like, how do we expect to ever come together? Yeah. But it's just...
But again, like, you'll return. And I'm hoping that you don't, like... That's, like, the worst part is when people... I feel like like, death really brings people together or pulls them apart, because again, those factors really can, like, stain a little bit, or sting, you know, too. And so I'm hoping that you can just, like, step back and be like, that's just their grieving. It's not their real maybe feelings, and maybe if it is, maybe let it come out later, you know, not during this time, the beginning stages anyway, of what you're going through. Yeah, I had to call my mom out.
No, you
recently.
Didn't. No. Well, good though.
Right before,
she probably needed to hear it.
Yeah. Right before my uncle passed, she had gone to Mexico to, like, you know, have closure with him and say her goodbyes, because they knew that, like, he was going to be passing soon. Mm-hmm. And she was a little bit upset at my aunts because they decided to, like, after saying goodbye, like, go have, like, get a couple, like, a pack of beers or whatever, and, like...
With your mom?
No.
Oh, without her, okay.
Well, she was like, I'm not drinking. Like, how dare you, you know, kind of like, why are we celebrating? Why are you laughing? Why are you dancing?
I see.
You know, we're losing our brother type thing. And I, like, was like, what's wrong with that?
You're eating her up, dude.
I just, like, I don't want her to have, like,
There's
resentment.
no reason to feel it.
There's no need to have resentment there when, like, at the end of the day, you guys are all processing this differently. And I get it. I get that it's hurtful to see people wanting to drink and, like, low-key, I guess, celebrate, but they're not like stomping on his grave and like
saying bad things
spitting
about him.
you know, like they're not disrespecting him. If anything, they're
sending him off.
They're creating like a community within
Positively.
each other, though, and like having a celebratory moment for life itself and maybe his life. Like, you don't.
Did they invite her? Like, is she feeling maybe more?
I think they did, but I think she was just so like,
right, yeah.
I guess a little bit on her high horse about the right way to grieve. And I'm like, and she was like, yeah, I guess just you're right. And like, she kind of like stepped down, and I was like, I'm not saying that what you're feeling is wrong though, either. Like, I'm just telling you that you don't need to feel that way,
you don't
because
need to feel upset at them.
What does that do for you at the end of the day? Like, if they don't want to grieve the way that you do, why is that hard?
I can see why it's hard.
Why is it bad?
Not be with the community.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be nice if at least one of them was like, on the same page as her. So I get that. Yeah. But it is so true. Like, if you have not gone through grief, or you're anticipating a death coming soon in your family, I think it's such a big reminder to yourself and everyone around you, like, you know what? Everyone grieves different. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're fine, everybody. Like, we're all going to get through this together, ideally. And if not, hopefully at some point you can come back together and forgive each other. I don't know. It is so complicated.
My best advice is, because grieving is so deeply personal, don't take it personal. Well, I mean, like, but what I mean by that is, like, don't take other people's grieving personal. It's not about you at the end of the day, you know? What you're feeling is about you. What they're feeling isn't about you. And I don't know.
It's so hard. Just like, again, I think of like the different ways people even like shield how they're actually feeling. So you think they're not grieving, but they are. Or like, I don't know, you know, there genuinely is no right or wrong. And I think like the point of this is just like, it will be forever, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I don't know, I think it's so like innately human and like kind of beautiful that like you see a soup on sale in the fucking grocery store and you think of a person.
It's so
like, that makes me want to cry. Like, it's just so not stupid, but just kind of stupid. Like, you're just like, oh, that soup's 79 cents. Like, I would buy it, but I won't because I don't like that soup, but that person did. Like, it's just like, how can you not? How can you not just be like, that's kind of nice though? Like, that someone could affect me so deeply that I'm at the grocery store thinking about them.
Yeah.
And that gets me through it, quite honestly. I don't know.
I think that's like when you befriend the grief, you start to really, you're not even just in gratitude, but you just see life as like this precious thing, whether it's like in death or in birth. Like, life itself is, in all its stages, is beautiful. And the fact that you get to, like you said, like, have a moment where you actually create or have a memory based on a literal material object, or a season or a month or a holiday, whatever it is. The fact that you're experiencing that just like goes to show how deeply emotionally connected we can all get and be. And that is so beautiful. That's the point of life, you know?
Yeah.
Is to experience those moments. And easier said than done, for sure.
Yeah, especially if you have bad memories connected to a person who has passed.
That's another part.
But it's still a deep connection and deep feeling, and it's all about being freaking human these days. Yeah. We're all deeply feeling human.
In the last episode that I had edited, I was like, we had talked about how we were feeling too human, and I was like, that is so real. Like,
it's literally you saying it. Oh, you guys are so real for that.
So real for that, girls.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't even know. Hopefully you felt,
I mean, you know, grieving's just difficult, and go express it somehow, you know, feel it out, or don't. I don't know.
Or don't. Go take a nap.
Go take a nap. Sleeping's great.
Sleeping has been proven to be great for me this past week and getting better.
Well, actually, though, like grieving, sleeping is really helpful because that's when your brain is processing the things that
that happen
that
in
happen.
Your day
That's why depressed people sleep a lot.
Lots of processing.
Lots of processing. So if you're, having a hard time, try to take a nap. If you can't take a nap, try to take a nap.
But yeah, so in Glowing Hour, we're actually going to be talking comfort and cozy and doing something a little bit different. So
if you usually don't tune in on the video, I would this time.
Yeah.
If you're listening on Apple, unfortunately, I don't have it on there.
Yeah.
But go onto our YouTube or come to Spotify.
We flipped it, but yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean.
All right. See you guys there.
Bye.